The American Pulse studio was glowing with bright lights. The mood was electric. People in the live audience leaned forward in their seats. Millions watched from home, from offices, from bars. Everyone was waiting for one of the biggest interviews of the year. Former President Barack Obama sat on one side of the stage, calm and smiling. On the other side sat Karoline Leavitt, the youngest government spokesperson in U.S. history. Only 27, but known across the country for her sharp words and fearlessness. The host, Jonathan Pierce, stood between them with a firm and warm smile. He raised his hand as the applause faded. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, "tonight is not just an interview. It's a conversation between two voices that shaped America in very different ways." Karoline adjusted her microphone. Her face looked focused, but her fingers tapped the table. Obama sat still, his hands calmly folded. Jonathan turned to Obama first. "Mr. President, thank you for being here. Your legacy has inspired many, especially in matters of diplomacy and the media. What are your thoughts on how media is functioning today?" Obama gave a light chuckle. "Thank you, Jonathan. The media today is complex. We live in a world of information overload, but I believe in a free press, when it works right." The audience gave light applause. Then Jonathan turned to Karoline. "And Karoline, you've been a strong voice criticizing media bias. What is your take on the press and its role today?" Karoline leaned forward. She took a breath. "Actually, Jonathan," she said clearly, "I'm not here to talk about opinions." The studio went silent. "I'm not here to debate Mr. Obama. I'm here to reveal the media war he started." A loud gasp rippled through the crowd. Obama's smile vanished. His eyes narrowed slightly. Jonathan blinked, clearly caught off guard. "Sorry, Karoline." "What do you mean?" Karoline reached down and placed a small black folder on the table. She looked directly at the camera. "For years, the public has been told that the media is broken, biased, manipulated. That's not just a theory. It's real. And it was started during President Obama's first term." Obama shifted in his seat. He didn't speak, but his fingers curled slightly. Karoline continued. "The legacy Mr. Obama is so proud of was built on controlling what you read, what you hear, what you believe." People in the crowd were stunned. Phones lit up as viewers started recording. Social media exploded in real time. Hashtags appeared instantly. "Your media war," "Your echo line," "Your Obama debate." Jonathan tried to interrupt. "Karoline, those are strong accusations. Do you have evidence?" Karoline nodded. "Yes. Documents, recordings, memos signed by former White House media directors, a full plan for something called Echo Line." Obama finally spoke, his voice steady. "I've never heard of that term, Karoline. And if you're bringing up conspiracy theories, I'd ask you to be careful with your platform." Karoline turned to him, unblinking. "You may not have used the name yourself, but your administration approved the teams, approved the tools. I have proof that Echo Line began under your direction." Jonathan looked confused. "What is Echo Line?" Karoline opened the black folder slowly. She held up a printed memo with parts of it redacted in black. "Echo Line is a covert program. Its purpose was to influence media outlets, quietly remove journalists who questioned the narrative, and boost stories that aligned with the administration's goals." The audience murmured again. Some faces looked shocked, others skeptical. Obama shook his head. "That sounds like a fictional novel. Are we really doing this on national television?" Karoline didn't back down. "This isn't fiction, and I'm not here for headlines. My own brother worked as a tech contractor on the digital part of the program. He vanished 3 years ago. We were told it was an accident. But now I know it wasn't." The studio fell completely silent. Jonathan stared at her. "Are you saying someone silenced your brother?" Caroline's voice dropped lower. I believe he found something he wasn't supposed to. Files, names, a list of approved media outlets and banned voices. I've spent the last year chasing what he left behind. Obama exhaled slowly. If what you're saying is true, Caroline, then the public deserves transparency. But I never authorized any such plan. She raised her hand. Then let's talk about the emails from your deputy chief of staff. The one where he talks about narrative stability and lists the names of 5 journalists who were suddenly fired in 2012. Obama leaned back. His silence said more than words. Jonathan looked from one guest to the other. We're going to take a quick break, he said with urgency. But don't go anywhere. Karoline says she has documents, recordings, and the full story behind Echoline. As the lights dimmed for commercial, the camera captured the unease on Obama's face and the fire in Caroline's eyes. What she would reveal next might shake the very foundation of political trust. The lights returned to full brightness as the show came back from commercial break. The silence in the American Pulse studio was sharp, almost physical. Viewers across the world leaned closer to their screens. Barack Obama sat stiffly, arms now crossed. Karoline Leavitt stared down, at her black folder, flipping a page with calm hands but fire in her voice. Host Jonathan Pierce cleared his throat. Before the break, Karoline Leavitt claimed she has proof of a covert media directive called Echoline, launched under the Obama administration to shape news coverage and control public thought. He turned slightly to Obama. Mr. President, Karoline says there are emails, memos, even recordings. Would you like to respond? Obama looked up, voice calm but firm. Let me be very clear. I serve this country with honesty. We worked hard to fight misinformation, yes, but this, Echoline, whatever it is not something I ever created or approved. Karoline didn't hesitate. You didn't sign? The papers, but your top advisors did, with your knowledge. She pulled out a printed email. This is from December 2011, an internal White House thread titled Message Uniformity, signed by Matthew Roy, your former deputy chief of staff. He writes, "The Echoline assets have been positioned. Mainstream opinion will hold." She looked straight into the camera. This wasn't a policy. It was an operation. Jonathan reached for the page. Obama kept his eyes locked on Karoline. Matthew Roy was in charge of crisis communications. He never controlled media assets. Karoline nodded. No, but he oversaw Echoline's early network. It started with friendly journalists given priority access to stories, so long as they stuck to the script. The audience shifted in their seats. A woman in the front row looked visibly shaken. A man whispered, "That explains the disappearances," Karoline continued. Over time, this network grew. Newsrooms were given suggestions on how to frame certain stories. Headlines were adjusted before publishing. A few reporters were blacklisted. And some... She paused. Some just vanished. Jonathan blinked. Vanished? She turned a page. Julian Torres, reporter, New York Tribune, found dead in a D.C. hotel 2 days after publishing a story on media influence during Obama's re-election. Obama frowned. That's a serious accusation. Are you claiming foul play? I'm saying Echoline had layers. Some just pushed a narrative. Others buried it. Julian's story was erased within hours. His notes were never recovered. Jonathan sat still. Karoline, why now? Why reveal this today? On live TV? Karoline's voice cracked slightly but remained strong. Because I kept quiet when my brother disappeared. He was one of Echoline's software developers. He left behind encrypted files. I've spent years unlocking them. And because Pope Francis once told me, truth must be louder than the throne that fears it. Obama blinked at the sudden reference. What does the Vatican have to do with this? Karoline glanced at him. More than you think. Echo line had foreign extensions: Europe, Latin America, news syndicates connected to intelligence agencies, and guess who warned the Vatican that American media was being weaponized? Obama looked genuinely confused now. What are you saying? That the church was monitoring American politics? Jonathan interrupted, sensing the rising tension. Karoline, is there direct evidence that connects these media operations to the White House? Karoline nodded. Yes, I have one audio file from a 2014 conference call between 3 senior advisors and a media consultant who worked for a large DC outlet. In it, they discussed suppressing coverage of a drone strike. Gone wrong because the public mood was too fragile. Obama's voice lowered. That decision was made for national security. I remember that strike. We handled it responsibly. Karoline answered quickly. Then why say the mood was too fragile? Why use emotion as a shield to hide the truth? The studio fell into silence again. Jonathan tried to stay neutral. Karoline, will you release these files? I already have, she said. They've been uploaded to 3 international archives. If something happens to me, the documents will go public in full. A hush fell over the audience. Obama leaned forward, speaking slower now. If what you're saying is true, then it's not just my administration involved. It means the media, the tech world, and global partners all participated. That's hard to believe. Karoline nodded. Yes, because it's that big. Jonathan ended the segment with a deep breath. This isn't over. After the break, we'll hear a leaked voice clip from that 2014 call. You don't want to miss this. As the screen faded, viewers could feel it. This wasn't just a political debate anymore. It was a war for the truth. The screen came back on with no intro music, no graphics, just the soft, tense breathing of everyone in the studio. The lights had dimmed slightly. Jonathan Pierce sat forward in his chair, eyes on the small monitor beside him. The audience was still, their anticipation thicker than the silence. This, Jonathan began, is a recording allegedly taken from a 2014 secure conference call between White House advisors and a high-level media consultant. The file has been verified by 2 independent digital analysts. He paused, letting that settle. Let's listen. A crackling sound played through the speakers. Then, a male voice, calm, professional. We're aligned, yes? The Tribune and Sentinel will delay publication. The public mood is fragile. We shape it gently, not force it. Another voice, familiar, clipped. Karoline looked straight at Obama as it played. We don't need headlines that question the strike. If we allow doubt, we lose the narrative. Coordinate with Echo line. Keep it tight. The audio faded. A beat of silence followed, and then gasps across the studio. Some in the crowd looked to Obama, others to Karoline, unsure where their trust should land. Jonathan leaned forward. Mr. Obama, do you recognize that voice? Obama exhaled through his nose, his face unreadable. Yes, that's James Lott, my former national security advisor. But these clips lack context. That call was likely held in the middle of an international crisis. Karoline spoke clearly, and your administration's solution was to hide the truth until the emotion passed. Obama turned to her, his voice rising, more tense now. Miss Leavitt, managing information during a national crisis is not corruption, it's leadership. She didn't blink. Leadership isn't silence. Leadership isn't choosing what Americans are allowed to know. The audience clapped once, an unsure, nervous spatter. Then more joined, half clapping, half staring at Obama in confusion. The nation, watching from living rooms, phones, and offices, was now split in real time. Jonathan picked up a new document Karoline had handed him. According to this memo, Echo Line was designed not just for crisis control, but long-term influence. It's dated 2013. One of the sections is titled Narrative Conditioning, Repetition and Authority. He looked at Obama. That's not short-term strategy. That's social programming. Obama's tone shifted, less defensive, more cold. I won 2 elections because people believed in something better, not because I tricked them. If some staffer took that belief and turned it into an operation, then that's not my legacy. It's a betrayal of it. Karoline's eyes flickered. That moment, was it a crack in his armor? She pressed forward. There's more. Echoline also worked with tech companies to control trending topics. I have internal emails from an early AI firm, Horizon Trace, confirming that they received White House content flags between 2012 and 2016. Guess what most of those flags were? Jonathan looked at her. Negative stories about drone strikes, whistleblowers, the Pope's early warnings about Western surveillance, and anything mentioning the software whistleblower we now know as Subject M. Obama's face changed. That name, he knew it. You're walking into dangerous territory, Karoline, he said slowly. She nodded. I know. Because Subject M was my brother, Marcus Leavitt. Gasps again. The studio felt like it tilted. Karoline's voice broke, just a little. He worked at Horizon Trace. He tried to expose how your administration used early AI to manipulate story reach. His last message to me said, if you don't hear from me in 48 hours, start digging. Echoline is real. Obama spoke quietly now. And what happened to him? Karoline took a deep breath. He vanished. No remains, no answers, no case. Just gone. Jonathan sat stunned. Even Obama looked unsure what to say. Karoline looked around the room. So don't ask me why I'm here. I'm here because my brother believed Americans deserved the truth. He believed a legacy built on lies is no legacy at all. The lights dimmed again as the show went to another break. But the audience didn't move. Across the world, the internet exploded. Hashtags. Echoline. Gosh, Subject M. Truth War. This wasn't politics anymore. This was a reckoning. And it had just begun. The commercial break ended, but no one seemed to notice. The audience sat motionless, like they were afraid even a whisper might break the moment. The screen cut back in. No music, no graphics, just the intense silence of a political war unfolding live. Jonathan Pierce cleared his throat, his voice steady, but slower than before. For those just joining us, what began as a standard political interview between former President Barack Obama and Karoline Leavitt has now turned into what may be one of the most explosive live revelations in American broadcast history. Karoline sat straight-backed, her hands folded tightly on her lap. Her earlier confidence was still there, but her eyes were wet. The mention of her brother, Subject M, Marcus Leavitt, had struck something deeper than politics. Obama, across from her, looked weary now. Not shaken, not angry, just heavy. Like he knew the weight of everything finally catching up. Jonathan turned to Karoline. You're saying your brother was silenced for trying to expose a government media alliance. Are you accusing the Obama administration of being involved in his disappearance? Karoline didn't blink. Yes. Murmurs swept through the audience like wind across dry grass. Obama leaned forward. Let me be clear. Your brother was never on any internal threat lists. I never signed anything involving Horizon Trace or Echoline. If something happened, to him, I want answers too. You want answers now? Karoline's voice sharpened. After 10 years of silence, after years of watching that tech company become a silent partner in political influence, my brother risked everything to bring this to light, and he's gone. Your name was on the White House visitor logs the day Horizon Trace signed its first media filtering contract. Obama looked at Jonathan. That was a routine tech partnership. Karoline pulled a second file from under the desk. Then explain this. Jonathan read the first page aloud. Operation Curtain Fall, Phase 1. Establish coordinated. Trending narrative control between federal media liaisons and civilian tech monitoring companies. Dated March 2015. Signed off by Deputy Director Alan Greaves. Authorized by WH Chief of Staff. Obama tensed. Karoline locked eyes with him. You want to say you didn't know, but your signature was on the Q4 communications summary, 4 weeks before my brother disappeared. Jonathan froze. He flipped to the second page. There it was, Obama's signature. The room seemed to stop breathing. Obama sat back in his chair. I signed hundreds of briefings every quarter. This could have been buried under layers of national security justification. But if that's my signature, then I take responsibility for what followed. Karoline whispered. It's too late for Marcus, but not too late for the country. Jonathan looked at both of them, his journalist instincts wrestling with his disbelief. We've just uncovered documents showing a covert coordination system between government, media, and tech firms. A system that, if real, changes everything we believe about narrative control in America. Suddenly, a producer rushed on stage and handed Jonathan a phone. He read the screen silently for a moment, then looked up at the camera. We're getting reports from multiple European outlets, Le Monde, Der Spiegel, and The Guardian, claiming they've been sitting on similar evidence for years, and now they're releasing it. Gasps. Phones lit up in the audience. Screens flashed as international headlines appeared. Jonathan turned to Obama. Sir, your response to the international release of data supporting these claims? Obama rubbed his forehead. Then this is bigger than me, bigger than one administration. This system didn't start with me, and I doubt it ended with me. If what's coming out is true, we're about to discover a global media manipulation architecture. Karoline added quietly, It started here, but it infected the world. Jonathan's voice trembled slightly. We are watching the collapse of trust in real time. Governments, media, technology. And it all began with a name. Echo. Line and a brother who disappeared. Karoline reached into her pocket and held up a small silver USB drive. This is Marcus's backup, hidden behind our family photo frame. I never opened it until 3 nights ago. She looked into the camera. I'm uploading it tonight. The lights dimmed once again, but no one moved. Not a breath. Not a blink. The world had crossed a line, and there was no going back. The studio was no longer just a stage. It had become a battlefield. The lights still shone, the cameras still rolled, but the atmosphere had changed. No one was watching out of casual curiosity anymore. They were witnessing history. And it wasn't over. Karoline Leavitt sat with the small silver USB drive resting in her hand. Her fingers trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the sheer weight of what she was about to unleash. Jonathan Pierce leaned forward, voice calm, but tight. Karoline, before you upload that drive, can you tell us what's on it? What exactly did your brother discover? Karoline looked toward the camera, then back at Jonathan. What's on here isn't just documents. It's surveillance logs, private communications, whistleblower testimonies, and, most dangerously, audio recordings. Some of them are from inside high-level meetings. Some from conversations no one was ever supposed to hear. Jonathan hesitated. Including, she nodded slowly, including meetings involving President Obama and several members of the National Security Council, not to mention executives from Horizon Trace, VexLink, and a major cable news network. Obama shifted in his seat. If those tapes are real, then this goes beyond scandal. It means we've all been part of a system, whether we knew it or not, that manipulated the very truth Americans relied on. Jonathan looked to the side as a producer handed him another breaking update. Karoline, we've just received confirmation. Independent data experts in Berlin and Washington have both authenticated early samples of the files you shared with them last night. This isn't a hoax. Whispers turned into open gasps in the studio. On social media, hashtags began trending. Echo line exposed. Karoline files. Truth breaks free. Karoline stood slowly and walked over to a laptop placed at the side of the stage. I waited years for this moment. My brother died in silence. Tonight, I end that silence. As she plugged in the drive, Jonathan asked, "Do you fear the consequences of releasing this? The legal fallout? National security risks?" Karoline stopped and turned to face the audience. "Fear? I've lived with it every day since Marcus vanished. But truth isn't dangerous. Lies are. Cover-ups are. And if this system survives one more year, it won't just silence voices. It will rewrite reality." Obama raised his hand. "Jonathan, may I speak?" The host nodded. Obama looked into the camera. "I want to speak not as a former president, but as a citizen. If what's on that drive is real, then we need a full investigation, no matter who it implicates, including me. This country deserves transparency. I failed to question things closely enough during my time in office, and if that silence cost us the truth, then I was part of the problem." There was a pause, brief but deep. Then Karoline hit upload. The screen behind them came to life. A chilling audio clip played. It was a familiar voice, calm, measured. "We don't need to suppress all content. Just shape it, curate it, guide it quietly so no one notices the pattern." The crowd froze. Another voice replied, "And the journalists? They'll follow, or we'll make sure they do. We reward loyalty. We isolate dissent." Karoline whispered, "That's Marcus's voice. In the background. He recorded this. He was in the room." Jonathan turned pale. "Who was the first speaker?" Karoline answered quietly. "Former Communications Director Harold Reed, appointed under Obama. Fired quietly 2 weeks after Marcus disappeared. No explanation ever given." Obama closed his eyes for a moment. "I had no idea. I never saw this report. No one ever told me he was being investigated for this." Another clip began. "And remember, the directive isn't to lie. It's to omit. Omit what distracts. Omit what destabilizes. Frame the story so the public sees only the safe version." The room was silent. Karoline stared at the screen. This was never about one president, one party. It was about control. And now, the illusion is gone. Jonathan's voice cracked. "What happens now?" Karoline looked at him, then at Obama. "We let the world decide." Outside the studio, thousands had gathered. Protesters, journalists, truth seekers. Around the globe, governments began issuing statements. International leaders demanded accountability. Whistleblowers surfaced, emboldened by what they'd just witnessed. And across every platform, TV, online, in the streets, one message echoed louder than ever before. The truth is out, and it cannot be caged again. The streets outside the studio were flooded with lights, cameras, and chanting voices. Helicopters hovered overhead. Across the world, newsrooms had shifted into emergency coverage. The term echo line had become a global headline within hours. Every screen flickered with fragments of Karoline's broadcast. Every anchor's tone carried disbelief. Inside the studio, the broadcast had ended, but the story had not. Karoline stood behind the curtain now, her breath steady but her mind racing. Jonathan Pierce joined her, holding a phone with constant message notifications. Germany just suspended its intelligence sharing agreement with the U.S. until this gets cleared. The EU Council is calling for a full investigation. And, Karoline, Russia's already using this as propaganda. She nodded grimly. I expected that. Obama emerged from the dressing room, his jacket off, sleeves rolled. He looked more tired than angry. "We've opened something too big to shut down now," he said, his voice low. The moment that audio played, we crossed a line, maybe a necessary one. Karoline turned toward him. "You didn't know about Echo Line?" "No," he said firmly, "but that doesn't mean I'm innocent. A president is responsible for the actions of his administration. The weight of that is finally settling on me." Suddenly, one of the producers rushed in, holding a headset. "We've got someone on the line from a secure line. Claims to be a former intelligence officer who worked directly under Echo Line's secondary protocol. Says he has names, funds, and an entire secondary archive." Jonathan raised an eyebrow. "He wants to speak on air?" The producer hesitated. "Only if he's granted immediate protective custody." Karoline took the headset. "This is Karoline Leavitt. You're live with me only." The man's voice crackled but was clear. "You don't know the full story yet. What was shown tonight is only phase 1. Echo Line wasn't just domestic. It had international branches, embedded agents shaping media in Canada, the UK, South Korea. It wasn't just to guide narratives. It was to destabilize foreign democracies quietly. Karoline's heart pounded. "You can prove this?" "I can send you a decryption key, but once you open it, there's no going back. The names inside include sitting presidents, CEOs, and 2 Nobel Prize winners." The line cut. Everyone in the room froze. Jonathan looked at Karoline. "We're not just dealing with American scandal anymore. This is a geopolitical bomb." Karoline paced, her voice tense. "If this goes public, now we risk mass political collapse. But if we sit on it, we allow the system to rebuild itself behind closed doors." Obama spoke up. "Then we need a third option, international cooperation, a panel of journalists and legal experts from multiple countries. They open the files, they report transparently. No spin, just truth." Jonathan nodded. "Like a global tribunal of facts." Karoline hesitated. "That might work. But it means trusting the very institutions that failed us." "Not the institutions," Obama said. "The people. The ones still inside who believe in their duty. We bring them in. We let them choose transparency." Just then, another update came in, this time from Interpol. A global meeting had been called in Geneva within 72 hours. Invitations were being sent to journalists, whistleblowers, and yes, even Karoline and Barack Obama. "Looks like the world's not waiting," Jonathan said. Karoline stared at the screen displaying her face next to Obama's. The headline read, "Truth on Trial. World watches as Echo Line explodes into global scandal." Karoline whispered, "We started something no one can control." Obama nodded. "Then let's make sure no one tries to." The storm was here, and the next move would determine whether the world moved forward into truth or back into silence. The meeting in Geneva was unlike anything the world had seen. Not just a political summit or media conference. It was something new, something raw. Delegates from more than 30 countries sat together in one massive, heavily guarded hall. Journalists, whistleblowers, tech analysts, intelligence officials, even survivors of media disinformation, all stood as witnesses to what was now being called the Echo Tribunal. Karoline Leavitt arrived under full security escort. Her eyes scanned the banners bearing the phrase, "Truth over Power." Cameras from every continent focused on her. She wasn't just a spokesperson anymore. She was the voice that triggered a global reckoning. Barack Obama entered minutes later. He wasn't escorted by guards. He walked alone, quiet, his face lined with experience and consequence. For many, his presence was a symbol of dignity. For others, a shadow over the truth. But today, he had chosen to testify, voluntarily. The hall went silent. A panel of international legal observers took their place. They included a former South African judge, a Japanese cybersecurity expert, a Norwegian journalist, and a UN transparency investigator. Neutral, respected, trusted. The lead judge leaned into the microphone. This tribunal is not a court of punishment. It is a platform for the release of classified truths related to Project Echoline and its global extensions. This session will begin with statements from Karoline Leavitt and Barack Obama. Karoline stepped forward. No paper, no speech. I stand here not as a politician, she began, but as a citizen who believes that silence is dangerous. The Echoline project wasn't just an American betrayal. It was a system built to bend the truth across borders, quietly, methodically. I was handed pieces of it. I chose to speak, and now we must choose what to do with the full truth. She paused, then added, "This isn't about revenge. It's about accountability and healing." The room didn't clap. This wasn't a stage. But the nods from around the hall spoke louder than applause. Then Obama stood. He didn't defend. He didn't deflect. "When I took office," he said, "I believed in protecting national security. I still do. But I also believed in democracy. Somewhere along the way, we allowed fear and control to blur the lines. I wasn't aware of Echo-line's reach, but I take responsibility for the environment that allowed it to exist." His voice cracked, just slightly. "This isn't about saving my legacy. It's about protecting the future. If truth costs a reputation, then so be it. Let it be mine." The first files were then released, publicly, through massive digital screens lining the walls. Names, memos, payment trails, false headlines designed to tilt elections, video evidence of backroom deals with private media firms, voice recordings of orders to delay certain news to protect political allies. One by one, illusions collapsed. Nations reacted in real time. Some leaders resigned within hours. Others demanded audits. News networks scrambled to distance themselves. Protesters across continents called for total media reform. A few tried to deny everything, but the truth was undeniable. It was in the Ainumaino, open now. And the final moment of the tribunal wasn't about scandal. It was about choice. The lead judge asked, "How do we prevent this from ever happening again?" A young journalist from Kenya stood and said, "We create a permanent truth assembly, a global body of journalists, fact-checkers, and citizens, not tied to power, tied only to transparency." The room agreed. The resolution passed. Outside, the world was different. No louder, but more awake. Billboards that once sold silence now asked questions. Children in classrooms studied Echoline like history. And somewhere in a newsroom, a young reporter checked their facts twice, because they knew the cost of distortion. Karoline returned to the U.S. quietly. No parade, no spotlight. Obama returned to Chicago, where he started. They never became allies, but they became symbols of a shared moment. A time when truth, however painful, mattered more than comfort. A time when silence was no longer enough. And somewhere, deep in a hidden archive, the last copy of the Echoline files sat in a sealed case. Not erased, but remembered.